Hey everybody, and welcome back to Viper Magic's channel. I am not Jim, my name is Brent, and from time to time I pop over here on his channel to review video games that I've beaten before he did. As you may have heard, Jim is a dabbler in video games and does a little here, a little there, a little here, except when he plays, 20 minutes of one game and then can call it a review. Thank you, Grounded. But we're here to talk today about Ghost of Tsushima from Sucker Punch Studios, part of PlayStation Studios on the PS4. This is coming out a month after The Last of Us 2. I purchased it on day one and have been basically playing it, whenever I had free time ever since. So I beat the game, I beat all the story missions, and I got the Platinum Trophy. So I did pretty much everything you could think to do in this game. And I'm a big Assassin's Creed fan. I pretty much loved all of them except maybe Syndicate is my least favorite. But I've played all those games, and I specifically love Origins and Odyssey, and put over 100 hours into both of those games each. And I played Odyssey, what was it, like 6-7 months ago? I got it for Christmas and then played 100 hours. So I've played Odyssey pretty recently and put a lot of hours into it. So if I compare Ghost of Tsushima to Odyssey, that's why. But I think it's a fair comparison. It's pretty apt. Even though in terms of hours played, I think this is way, Ghost of Tsushima is a smaller game, which I think is just fine. I had plenty of fun with it. I think it's a great game. I recommend it to anybody who likes open world games. There's a lot to like here, and some things to love. I think Ghost of Tsushima is probably going to suffer a little bit, because it comes out right after the technical powerhouse that was Last of Us 2. I know there was some discussion on, my last two videos on this channel. I did a review for that. In the Xbox Showcase, I called Last of Us 2 a great game, which I think is an accurate statement, but probably the most accurate thing about that one, so don't, haters, just wait, is that it is a great technical game, and it's a technical powerhouse with a story that left some fans divided. So if you want to put it that way, I think that's pretty accurate, and I don't think you can argue with that. I like the story on that game, but that is neither here nor there. We're here to talk about Ghost right now. So let's talk about Ghost. So it's coming hot on the heels of Last of Us 2. I think the reviews are going to suffer a little bit before that because everybody's been looking at their PlayStations for the last month. They get Last of Us 2. It looks great. It's a linear game except for that first little area in Seattle. But, literally you're just focusing on like one thing ahead of you, and the computer, the PS4 is always loading the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So they're able to have these super detailed models in there. While there is detail here in Ghost of Tsushima, it's not to that level. They're not able to switch out super, the playable character models when you're a third person into the, cinema level CGI character models for the cutscenes. They're not doing that here in Ghost as they were in Last of Us. So you're there's not as much technology and stuff in the facial animations and all that stuff that Naughty Dog puts into their games. Whereas here, Sucker Punch is like, we're gonna make a good, or focus on making a great open world game, and I think they did that. I really like this game, so we're gonna call it great. There's a lot to like here. I don't know personally if we're ever going to get a Japanese Assassin's Creed game here after this game, because I think it would be pretty hard to do. I feel like you could do it if I think the scale of their map is one thing. So let's talk about that. If you're comparing this to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, there's easily, 100 hours over there. There's probably 40 to 50 hours here in this Japanese island of Tsushima. So we're talking about Japan, right? Like, we're talking about this one island, which the entire game takes place on one island called Tsushima. And basically, Tsushima is a large island inside, that's part of Japan, but it's actually like a little bit closer to the Asian mainland. I forget if it's Korea or I want to say it's China. Closer to the Chinese mainland than the rest of Japan is. So they're kind of equidistant between mainland Asia and mainland Japan, so to speak. They're a big chain of islands. So there's kind of a weird place that you're in geographically. This weird, island in the middle of, I think it's the Japanese Sea or something like that. Sea of Japan. I could be wrong here. Don't shoot me. Anyway, where am I going with that? So it's based on historical events. There was an invasion by the Mongols in the 1200s. That's where our game takes place. You're fighting Khotan Khan, and he has come and started his invasion on Tsushima, and I guess they're going to plan to use that island as a staging ground for their eventual invasion into all of Japan. So your story is focused on one samurai, Jin Sakai, and you are, as Jin, you are the lone warrior basically against all the Mongols after the samurai are gloriously defeated at the very beginning of the game. And this game starts off very, very fun. You start off right in that big battle. It's kind of like that end of the Return of the King where the Rohirrim show up and you've got the big speech, the general's in front of the army and he's yelling at all the samurai and, we will go into battle, and then they go in and instead of winning, these guys get massacred. And that's where the game takes place from there. You're kind of like the last man standing, and the entire country or entire island has lost hope that the samurai, these warrior class, are going to be able to defend them, and the Mongols are running wild across the island, and it's up to you to take back your homeland, to take back your island. And it's a pretty large island if we're talking, all things considered. It's broken up into 3 sections, top, middle, bottom, and you're kind of let into one area at a time. Each area is kind of gated until you finish the story missions that move you on story-wise into the next section, and it makes sense. You're starting from the bottom where the big battle took place, and so you have to kind of clear that out first before you can move on to the next area. And then there's a big mountain ridge, and then you're held back from there until you move on to the story, and then go into the final area in the last battles there. So in terms of story missions, there's not a whole lot. I feel like there's probably 3 or 4 per act or per section, which puts you somewhere in the realm of 9 to 12, let's call it 15 different story missions. And story missions are marked by, like a gold icon. And then you have a lot of other missions. Don't get me wrong, this game is not low on content for sure. There's a lot of side characters, and each side character that you meet and recruit basically for your team for all these story missions, they have their own tale to tell. And you will acquire weapons through them and extra types of ammo and sets of armor, all by completing these different missions. So it is worth your time to to seek out these other types of missions before moving on to the story missions. Although it gets a little funky because right in the middle of the second act, there are some story missions where you get great abilities. And it's like, man, I wish I'd had this for, the second third of the game here. That would have been nice. There's a lot. You start off very simplistically in combat, and then combat grows. You get different stances and such. So one stance is effective against swordsmen. There's another one for shields. There's another one for spears. There's another one for big brutes. And then as you play the game, you level up your combat abilities to effectively take on all these different guys at one time. So that is cool. So you can play the game as much as you want and max out your character very early on. I did that pretty much. I was pretty powerful by the time I went into Act 1. And I don't know if that's to the game's, strong, is that good or bad, really. I got another ability and thought this would have been nice to have, way earlier. I think in the middle of the second act, I got this ability, this stance, and I was like, why isn't this introduced earlier? I mean, by that time, I only had, the story missions and the third act left, which was, amounted to a couple of hours. So, should they have more front-loaded it? I kind of think so. That's not to say combat is bad until you get all the abilities. I think it's great overall. I really like the block and parry mechanics that this game features. It's very similar to Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, those mechanics there. Different buttons for attack, obviously, but I think it does pretty well for itself. I'm not a player of the Souls games or Sekiro or Neo, so I don't know how this compares to those. I can only imagine that's a little more simplified than those, because those have your stances and stamina and stuff like that. I'm not into stamina managing. You can button mash in this. You're not going to be very good, but you can also, you need to switch stances in between attacks when you're facing different types of enemies. That much is clear. The only thing I had a complaint with the combat was felt like could have been more responsive. I had a lot of issues where I was trying to switch stances where it wouldn't register. Like I was doing it too fast or something like that, and I was getting hit. You know, there's something later in the game where you get an ability if you're able to kill a bunch of people without getting hit. Well, I wasn't able to do that, maybe because I was moving too fast, but also because sometimes I felt like you got suckered. Yeah, I got hit with a fire arrow or rolled through fire sometime, and that took damage, so it registered as a hit. And I was like, that's kind of nonsense because it wasn't my enemies that did it. Or a dog attacks you, and then out of nowhere you lose your the entire meter you just built up to use the special ability. So that was kind of a bummer. So as cool as it was, that ghost stance as it is a little frustrating. The story, I think it's fine. I'm not a big samurai guy, so I don't not seen any Kurosawa films. I didn't play in Kurosawa mode. I played normal color with them speaking English. So I can't speak to any of those, but the game is beautiful. The story, however, is pretty meh. There's no humor. It's all very taken seriously, surface level. And I think that's one thing that the last Assassin's Creed game, Odyssey, did well, is it had some humor injected in there with its character, its main character, as well as the side characters and side quests. I mean, there was a lot more in those games, but this game, everybody you meet is very dour, very, run-of-the-mill, depressed. Considering what's going on, I guess it's fine, but I think a little levity and brevity, humor could have worked itself well into this game. There's one crazy character you meet, but he's literally the only one in the game, and his side missions and stuff are short. I think the standouts here in this game are the mythic tales. I think those are the best quests that they have, and you get extra abilities and extra weapons for doing them, and they always start off with this really cool animated intro as you're hearing the mythic tale of some magical thing you're about to go get, whether it's armor or an ability or a weapon or something like that. So I think those are cool. I would like to see more of those in the next game going on from there. So, yeah. But overall, I think this is a great game. I think it's worth your time and worth your hard-earned money. I think if you can spend 50 hours in this game for $60, that's $10 an hour. I mean, that's pretty good, I think, in terms of gameplay-wise. And you could definitely stretch it out. If you're just roaming the hills, encountering wayward Mongols and all that stuff, you're going to spend way more time than I was. I was kind of focused, like, finish the story, play all the missions, unlock everything, and then after that I was like, I'm done. I spent a lot of time in this game. But I wouldn't call it burnt out because I played double this, in any of the Assassin's Creed games, but I had fun with it. So that's my thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima. What did you guys think? Let me know down below. I will be in the comments as BK's Bullets, that's me, and Jim will be down there as well. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time here on the other side.